and welcome to today's lecture on Chapter 7, Interpersonal Communication. Interpersonal communication, as we learned earlier this semester, is communication between two people. And our book defines it as two-way interaction between people who are part of a close and irreplaceable relationship in which they treat each other as unique individuals. And interpersonal communication is the most common type of communication context. You're more likely to see people communicating in pairs or dyads, whether they be friends, siblings, families, romantic partners, teacher and student, doctor and patient, etc. So dyads are very, very common, and interpersonal communication is very important. So let's talk about the importance of interpersonal and the types of relational messages that what it communicates. So interpersonal communication encompasses four different aspects. The first is affinity, the second is respect, the third is immediacy, and the last is control. So let's examine each one of these. Affinity is the degree to which we like and appreciate others. So I would say that's an important aspect of interpersonal. Respect is the degree to which we admire others and hold them in high esteem. So I also feel that would be important. We might have affinity for someone, but we might not respect them. So think about that. You don't have to have all four for this to happen, but I'm just breaking down the four aspects of relational messages. Now, the third is immediacy, which is the degree of interest and attraction we feel towards another person. And then the last component is control, which is the amount of influence exercised by each communicator. And when you think about it, in each interpersonal relationship, each person has some kind of element of control in the relationship. Now, next I want to talk about meta communication. So in essence, meta communication is communication about communication. So it's actually many messages within the message. This term describes messages that refer to other messages. So whether you write JK in a text or LOL, these are all meta messages. So they're cues or clues about a message. Now, in meta communication, there are certain things that you need to do. Number one, you need to look below the surface. Think of it as an iceberg. You're only seeing something that's above the water, but there could be a huge amount of information and underlying meaning that exists underneath the surface that you cannot see. Also, meta communication can be used for more than just solving problems. It can be a reinforcement of positive aspects of your relationship. Also, meta communication brings relational issues out into the open, which kind of can make things a little risky, right? So when you talk about your relationship or you're having an issue or a problem with a friend or a romantic partner, these are never easy conversations to have, but they're important for the longevity of the relationship. So next, I want to talk about self-disclosure. And self-disclosure is a very important part of communication. And self-disclosure is the process of deliberately revealing information about yourself that is significant and that would not normally be known to others. So think about information that you really haven't shared with many people, that you really haven't disclosed to others. And it's okay, because we all have our own things that we keep inside. But we make determinations with our relationships on how much we should self-disclose to others. Like what's safe, right? Because sometimes we have shared something with someone and then they've betrayed our confidence. And then we felt badly because then we think, well, we can't trust people. We can't share our feelings because people are going to go off and tell our private secrets to other people. So it's really learning when and how to self-disclose is an important part of becoming a competent communicator. But one thing I can tell you is that self-disclosure does foster intimacy. So if you want to build a relationship with someone and go deeper with them on an emotional level, that includes sharing information and disclosing information. So I want to talk to you right now about two different models that you need to know about in Chapter 7. One is called the social penetration model, and one is called the Johari window. So the social penetration model is a circle, and it's layered circles. It's almost like an onion. Okay, I always think of Shrek when I say this because, ogres are like onions, right? They have a lot of layers. So the perspective of the social penetration model is that communication occurs within two dimensions. The breadth, which is the range of subjects that you discuss with people. So imagine a circle, and imagine the circle being like a pizza and cut into slices. So one slice or one width around the circle is the breadth. So however many pieces you have represents the number of different topics or subjects that you discuss with that person. And the depth is the other dimension, which is how in-depth and personal the information becomes. So how much closer to the center of the onion you get, if that makes sense. When you look at the book and you look at the chapter and you look at the diagram for the social penetration model, this will make sense. The next type of model for self-disclosure that I want to discuss is the Johari window. Now, this model proposes that everything about a person can be categorized into 4 quadrants of a window pane. So imagine, if you will, a window with 4 quadrants. And on one continuum is what's known is yourself, and the other continuum is others. So the open quadrant is quite simple. It's information that's clearly known to yourself and clearly known to others. It's therefore open. The blind quadrant is when things are known to others, but they're not known to you. So let me give you an example. If you've ever been in a relationship with someone that, say, your friends really didn't care for, and they kept telling you that so-and-so is bad news, and you keep saying, no, she's great, or no, he's wonderful, you just don't understand. And then later on, you come to find out the truth about this person, in which your friends were right. It's almost like the saying, love is blind, right? Everyone else can see it, you can't see it. So that is the example of the blind quadrant. The next quadrant is hidden. This is information that you know about yourself, but is not known to others because you do not want to divulge it. That's why it's hidden. It's locked deep down inside you until you feel confident with the level of intimacy that you have with an individual in order to self-disclose that information with them. And then the last quadrant is simply unknown. It's unknown to you, it's unknown to others, and therefore it is unknown. So the Johari window, 4 panels, 4 quadrants, open, blind, hidden, and unknown. Again, this is in the book, and once you see the diagram, it will make sense when you refer to it. So the question then becomes, when do you and how do you disclose to people? When is it safe? Because we've all shared something with someone that we surely wish we had not, right? So in deciding whether it's okay to disclose information to someone, you may want to consider the following factors. Number 1, how important and how trustworthy this person is. Do you know them really well? How long have you known them? What's your relationship? How much do you know about them? Again, it may be too soon to share the information with that person. The second thing you need to consider is how risky and how appropriate the disclosure is. Everyone harbors some kind of a risk when you share information that's personal. So you need to think to yourself, how will you feel if this person betrays your confidence and shares this information with someone else? Are you going to be okay with that? And how appropriate it is. You may not know this person well enough to really get that deep with them. So again, be careful, be cautious when you are self-disclosing. And then the final thing you need to consider is whether the disclosure will be reciprocated by the other person, whether it's constructive and whether it's understandable. If you share with someone and the person does not in turn return and reciprocate something about them, it will feel one-sided to you and it'll feel awkward and it won't be good. So again, is this person likely to share back, or has this person shared with you prior to this moment? Those are things that you should probably consider before self-disclosing to someone. Now, we're going to talk about interpersonal communication online, because let's face it, a lot of relationships are maintained on the internet and through social media. Some are found over the internet and social media, in which case you really have to be careful, because anyone can be anyone online. So what can interpersonal communication online do? It does help people stay connected, and especially in the times of COVID, when we were sheltering in place and being at home and not going out, it certainly connects us to our friends, and it is important, and I can see that. And I certainly agree with that. But too much of a good thing isn't a good thing. It also can feel non-threatening. It helps introverts. You all know whether you're extroverts or introverts, and sometimes online communication can help introverts come out of their shell. So that's could be a good thing. It also can be validating for people. Obviously, getting likes and getting shares and getting positive feedback and comments is always welcome and always good. But sometimes people are upset when they don't get likes on their picture or their post, and then that becomes kind of damaging and not a good thing. But here are some things that are not so great about interpersonal communication online. It can lead people to neglect those around them. There's a term in our book called phubbing, and phubbing is when we snub others with our phones. And I'm pretty sure this has happened to you when you're trying to talk to someone and they're too busy with their Snapchat streaks or their status updates, or they're checking their email or whatever it is, and they're not focused on you. So it's really important to be mindful and take time to put the phone down or put the device down and interact with who's in front of you. And honestly, interpersonal communication online can be overwhelming. I know that it's a lot of work to maintain social media identity. And so that's why a lot of people don't choose to have that, because frankly, it's a lot of work. How many times have you logged on to Facebook or Instagram just to check something, and 4 hours later you look up and go, oh goodness, I better get to that homework. So again, it can be really overwhelming to keep up with everybody and all their posts. And there's just some days I just don't even look, because frankly, I have a life, and that is not the most important thing on my agenda. So interpersonal communication online can be good, can be bad, just all on how you use it. Now I want to talk about confirming and disconfirming messages. So confirming messages, as you probably know, is that they're messages that demonstrate respect and approval. So that's confirming messages are good. Disconfirming messages, bad. So disconfirming messages deny the value and the worth of a person. So you want to focus on obviously stating more confirming messages. And here are 3 levels of confirming messages. So the first is to show recognition towards someone. The second level of a confirming message is to acknowledge their thoughts and feelings, because that's important. Everyone wants to feel like they're being listened to, and they're being heard, and they're being appreciated. And then finally, the third level of a confirming message is to show that you agree. And sometimes, again, people just want some agreement. They just want some love. So show them some love by being attentive, by being mindful, by being a good listener. Now, here's some ways to avoid some disconfirming strategies. So we talked about how disconfirming messages are bad. Here are some things that you should avoid. Hurtful evaluations. Definitely, you should watch your you language and try and focus on I language. So have you ever found yourself in a situation where you're having a conversation with someone and that person keeps saying to you, well, you did this and you did that and you. Well, what happens when you hear that? When you use you language, your wall comes up, your defensiveness escalates, and you're trying to protect yourself. So it's better to reframe that by using I language. So you could say, when you exhibit this behavior, I feel hurt. or something along those lines where it's not you, and putting that person on the defensive. You also want to avoid being manipulative. You also want to avoid acting superior or acting like you're better than someone or behaving like a know-it-all, because frankly, that comes across as arrogant and dismissive. And we don't really want to hang out with people like that. So, more confirming messages and less disconfirming messages. And what I want to end today's lecture with are relational spirals. So we know communication is about relationships and about building those relationships. We want to try and build those positive spirals. So a spiral is a reciprocating communication pattern when each person's message reinforces the others. So it can be something like this. You look very nice today. Well, so do you. I really like that outfit. So again, it's just building positive upon positive upon positive. And believe me, compliments are always a good thing. Now, positive spirals result when confirming messages lead to similar responses. But the opposite can happen as well. Negative spirals can involve an escalatory conflict, and it could be very awful and very hurtful. One bad or mean thing can lead to someone shooting off and saying another mean thing, and it's a negative downward spiral. So you don't really want to go there. You really want to learn on how to manage your emotions and what to say and what not to say, because frankly, sometimes it's just not worth the energy and the emotion to get into a negative spiral. Positive spirals are so much better. But most relationships actually pass through both types of cycles. It's not all positive all the time. It's not all roses and chocolate all the time. You know that. So understanding that a balance towards the positive is necessary for the relationship to be satisfying for both people. And that you're going to have bad days and you're going to have bad moments, but it's learning from them, it's focusing on the positive and getting back on that track and being a good listener and being mindful and being aware of the person that you're communicating with and making them feel important. And you do that by putting your phone down, looking them in the eye when they're speaking to you, and just being a mindful and present listener. So thank you for joining me today for the lecture on Chapter 7, Interpersonal Communication. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you next time.